What is up, theology nerds? This is Trip, and today on the podcast, you're going to get to visit Theology Beer Camp 2024. That's right. This was recorded live in Denver, Colorado last year at Theology Beer Camp, and it features the one and the only Ilia Delio. She's there to drop an amazing keynote on the future of religion. And that's not all. After that, she's joined or rejoined with a response from Pete Enns, one of the members of the Bible for Normal People podcast. And then Josh Patterson from Rethinking Faith podcast, Sari Concepcion. They all four have a conversation kind of unpacking the talks and exploring the themes and such. And this is the kind of excitement that goes down at Theology Beer Camp. And you know why we're sharing it? Because we want you to come join us this year, October 16th to 18th in St. Paul, Minnesota. We're going to have some amazing theologians. There'll be over 40 theologians, a whole bunch of different God pods, 600 people, and a whole bunch of nerdy fun. This year, John Dominic Crossan is coming, Philip Clayton is coming, Kelly Brown Douglas is coming, Juan and Stacy Floyd Thomas are coming. We're going to have a whole bunch of our favorite podcasts, not just Pete Enns, the Bible for Normal People is going to be there, the New Evangelicals, You Have Permission, Rethinking Faith. Look, it's going to be so much fun, and you don't want to miss out. So go to theologybeer.camp, check out all the amazing speakers and podcasters coming, sign up and get your ticket before early bird prices end on May 15th. All right? So feel the lure, and not just the camp, but also the cosmic lure for the future of religion with everyone's favorite nun, Ilia Delio. Enjoy.
This session, we're looking at the future of religion. And, hopefully it's different than the past. But the posture is one of humility. And the idea for the posture and thinking about the future of religion came when I got to hang out in the Tetons with Ilia Delio, and we went on a walk. And we went on one of these walks that are made for talking, not losing your breath. So it's more like this. And she's like talking to me about Teilhard's understanding of dual aspect monism and how it connects with Whitehead's and how the particular words may be used differently and what's the nature of experience and how is it falsifiable by contemporary empirical experiments. And we're like going through this whole thing or whatever. And then random minister decides to join our conversation and is like, I just kind of want to know what y'all think about the future of religion. And there's a pause and Ilia goes, a lot. And you could see the disappointment in the minister's face, was looking for the wise nun guru to give an answer. And then she goes, well, it's complicated. I hope it's really different. A bit depressing, but it's an opportunity. And that was sitting there just thinking with this. And then a few weeks later, after we got back from OrtCon up in the mountains, I had a little Zoom sesh with my boy Pete Enns. And we were mostly complaining about baseball and trying scotch and sharing like personal things and stuff. And then I told about this conversation with Ilia, and he's like, she's someone I would love to talk to. Like, I just really like her books and I only understand half of it, but I feel like I have a lot to learn. And then the Holy Ghost touched my heart and said, could you put them on stage at the same time at Theology Beer Camp in Denver? And so that's what's happening. So if you'll join me, and I mean join me in a verbose way, because this is Ilia freaking Delio.
Trip Fuller, and all those who are associated with Trip Fuller, thank you. This is such an awesome gathering. I have to say, I actually love Theology Beer Camp. This is, for me, very hopeful for what the world could become. So all I can say is, wow. The future of religion. Trip, really. Why not, What the heck? For those who may not know me, I was originally trained as a scientist. So I was a Sunday Catholic, the kind who went to church every Sunday at 9 o'clock, and that was it. Although I had secret conversations with God because I thought God was pretty cool. But I never thought much about religion. And I was in neuroscience. I was in brain and spinal cord research, mostly spinal cord, working on a model for Lou Gehrig's disease. And I came across Thomas Merton, and I was like, that's what I want to do. I want to go to a monastery and live like totally in the desert for Christ. Well, I got to the monastery, then I was like, that's what I want to do. I want to go back to the world and go back to science. So to make a long story short, I became a Franciscan sister only because I basically jumped the wall of the monastery and landed in a group of German Franciscans. And the only reason I liked them is because they drank beer on Sunday. I thought, I like this group, and they went out. And then they called me in one day and said, we'd like you to study theology. I said, what is that? I have no idea, really. So I kind of backstepped into theology and never thought I would ever be doing this, I have to tell you. So I am living proof that God has a sense of humor, and really, you can be doing amazing things you never dreamt of in your life. So the future of religion is really interesting because I approach this question not from the future, but from the past into the future. And that's really what I want to do here. Let me see if I can do this. So I'm really fascinated by many aspects of science, and one of them is the Big Bang. And I think sometimes we think too small, and we need to widen our narrative of who we are in this pretty awesome place that we call universe, cosmos. Recently, I read that the newest age of the cosmos may be up to 20 billion years old. Right now, we're working at 13.8 billion years old, but it could be even much older than that. That is a very, 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 very long time. Long. And we're here for just a small, wink of an eye. If you wink, you've just lost 2 million years, in this cosmos. But here we are, we're thinking about the very process that has given rise to us. So we are the universe on the level of thought or self-reflective consciousness. That's pretty cool. Now, David Bohm, a physicist and contemporary of Einstein, sort of a contemporary, a little bit later, he was studying quantum physics, and he came to this notion that at the root reality of what we are, if you drill us down all the way to the quantum level, he says, as human beings and societies, we seem separate, but in our roots, we are part of an indivisible whole, and we share in the same cosmic process. So, really, the Big Bang story is about original unity. That's our fundamental basis. But somehow we have grown out of that unity into separateness or self-isolation and the feeling that we have really nothing in common sometimes. Well, I like to put this story as well into the narrative of evolution as, well, if you like books, and there's a lot of booksellers here, like the Encyclopedia of 30 volumes. So imagine this set of volumes called Life. And each volume has 450 pages, and each page is 1 million years. Volume 1 would be the Big Bang. That means, now that's not to mean God was not doing anything and then God decided to have a meeting and said, oh, let's make a universe, ta-da. No, nothing like that, all right? We don't know how this universe began. It could be out of a previous one, it could be one of many universes. That's the stuff of science. It just happened. Now the Earth, that would be our little place here, we're sort of a little planet in a mid-sized galaxy of a universe of billions of galaxies. All right, so are we the only form of intelligent life in the universe? I know we're special, but we're not probably that special, There are probably other forms of intelligent life somewhere in this universe. Well, anyway, volume 21, life began here on Earth. Volume 22, it started bubbling up. 7 volumes later, the Cambrian period. We got, animals roaming the Earth. Volume 30, that would be our volume, the dinosaurs go extinct on page 385. That is just nearer to our end. Volume 30, the mammals appear on page 390. Those would be whales and elephants. Volume 30, page 450, and the last 2 words of the last page and the last line would be us, human beings. And there's no period. Thank you for reading this volume. Here are the credits. We are evolution on the level of self-reflective consciousness. We're not just simply talking about evolution. We are what the universe is becoming. So, why is that important? Well, if you look at the story of evolution, now this is not a great picture, okay? I just want to put that out there. But it kind of gets the message. We have a lot of relatives. Our species, Homo sapiens sapiens, is new. It's only about 140,000 years old. But we have a whole bunch of people before us. Australopithecines, Homo habilis, Homo erectus, Homo neanderthalis, and then come us. And you go, so how did what happened to those guys and girls? But they always show this in this way. Brains got bigger. They were tool makers. They created, ways to optimize life, and life began to evolve or adapt over time. And that's what life does. It adapts. It changes as the environment changes. Now, I just thought you should know this is what it looks like in the Catholic Church. Some are evolving, some are not. Okay, I just want you to know that the rate of evolution is not constant across the domains. Now, one thing I want us to appreciate is that nature is incomplete. We are in process of becoming. That's really an important point, because we talk about, especially if you follow the Adam and Eve narrative, that God created it, then we fell, then we have to repair things, right? So that's a very static view, and it's actually not in sync with our true biological existence. We emerge, we're incomplete because we're continued to be emerging. There are no fixed essences. That really makes us nervous. What do you mean, no fixed essences? Like, you're you and I'm me. Well, stay around for another, say, 1,000,000 years, okay? Nature is consistently oriented toward new and complex life. New things happen. That is actually a part of evolution. And what drives evolution? Creativity and transcendence and imagination. And so the one who is most creative, who can imagine life that becomes more inviting, adaptable, sustainable, bringing together, that's what evolves. Now, why do I say that? Is because our fastest evolver today is technology. We know that we are moved from, I remember the phone in late 1970s, they said they're going to make a phone. My phone in New Jersey was on the wall, and it had a 3-foot cord, yeah? And they said, we're going to make a phone to fit in your hand. And from that phone in the hand, they said in the 80s, they're going to put a computer in it. I said, what's a computer, right? Now we get smaller, smaller, smaller. Our phones, our chips, our phones will be obsolete in 10 years. Our computers will be obsolete in 10 to 15 years. We are going to be completely digitized, wired. We'll be communicating in entirely different ways. We're like, oh my gosh, I thought this was about religion, right? Stick with the program here. Okay, so something about technology has pulled us into its grasp at an alarming rate. Technology is evolving us exponentially. Exponentially. For every year of technological development, we are enhancing everything about us, and we can't keep up with it. We're on this breathless pace of development with technology. We don't know where it's going. And therefore, the question of religion is not just a nice question. It is paramount. It is the most important question in the 21st century. So this is a book by Robert Bellah, and Religion in Human Evolution. And I like this book insofar as Bellah brings us back to the fact that religion does not mean clearly articulated dogmas or doctrines, but a creative and experientially grounded orientation to the mystery of being alive. Attentive to the mystery of being alive. So he says, religion has more to do with matters of concern than with matters of fact. And that led Bellah to begin to look at the evolution of religion, which he locates actually in some primate species, like a kind of behavior that would mimic religious behavior, beginning with play. Isn't that interesting? Religion is beginning with playfulness. Now think about play. Everyone's invited into the play. It kind of levels the hierarchies, and it reduces the physical inequalities so that he calls play a type of proto-justice. I watch the kids at Villanova play basketball or pickleball. There's something that pulls them in together, despite whatever differences they might have. So he says play requires the capacity not only for shared attention, but shared intention. And that's the condition for both religion and sociality. So Bellah says, religion grows out of the collective soil of ritual, right? We're ritualistic, like many of the species before us. And he says it's not something we believe in. And here I think this is an important point. So we have made ourselves all divided up because my God's bigger than your God, right? Or we have the real God. Or like Catholics are great on we're the true, we're the real deal. And you're nice people, but, unless you become one of us, it's not going to go well for you, right? I'm like, oh my God, is that ever bad thinking, right? So it's not something you are, it's something you do. Religion is what you do. And I think Jesus of Nazareth is really a good example there. He never said, hey, I'm God, by the way, and I'm starting a new church, and you really need to follow me. It was just about doing, right? So this engagement with symbolic forms of ritual, playing and transporting us into non-ordinary reality, breaking through the everyday reality and causing us and pulling us into a new being together. And that's why I kind of like church, actually. I like the collectivity. We're gathering, whatever community of faith you belong to, you gather in, and you're called into a new reality in that moment together, right? Wherever we are. So the earliest religions we know were, it was about being called in and telling stories. So we're storytellers, right? We like a good story. And therefore, every religion, all that has existed before us, was always about cycles of life, death, rebirth, because it always follows a cosmology. Also, ritual celebrations, drum beating, music playing, whatever it is, some kind of even sacrifice built into that ritual. And these cosmologies were meant to bring us and connect us to the larger cosmos, right? A deep perception of the rhythm of the skies and the stars. And therefore, this human religious impulse growing out of ritual was to, in a sense, make us more cosmic. So that's another problem for us. We became decosmologized with modern religion because we've made it very logical, very thoughtful, very argumentative, and we kind of lost the bigger picture of religion. And therefore, I just wanted to know, to be aware, and here I use the notion of axial religion is just a model that religion and cosmology belong together. So if you say to me, if I ask you, what is your cosmology? I will have a sense of what your religion is. Pre-axial religions are sort of animistic. They were the religious spiritualities that really endured for eons, a long, long span of time, prior to the emergence of axial, or the modern person that arose in the axial age. So we moved from flat earth cosmology to geocentrism in the axial age, which is where all our religions emerged, and we ourselves are living in a new axial period called the second axial period. All that we're talking about in religion right now is born in the axial age of consciousness, the axial person, and we are struggling to make sense of living and believing in a second axial period. And so we're in between cosmologies, we're in between stages of religious consciousness, and it's both a challenge and an invitation. So we can look at it this way. Pre-axial religion is tribal, mythic, ritualistic, communal, and, there's a beauty to it. It's not only being together, it's, in a sense, being together and connected with the larger cosmos, the sun, the trees, the earth, the wind, the sky, the seas. The axial person becomes more transcendent. God is beyond us, right? The autonomous thinking person, the one who, in a sense, has a sense of the beyond, the person of freedom to think. So logic, arguments, scholasticism, all emerge in this period. And now we find ourselves in a new axial age. Relatedness, immanence, ecology, global consciousness. So what is religion in this age? That's our question. And as long as we keep living in the axial period of religion, in the period of the individual believer, who thinks about God and has some sense that, or logical reasons for God's existence, well, it's not going to work. And that's where we're saying religion will either play a vital role in the 21st century, or it's going to be completely replaced by technology. So who among us might have, we're stuck, that sounds about right, doesn't it? We're stuck. There we are. My guide in this cosmos is the Jesuit Teilhard de Chardin. So how many of you know Teilhard? A little bit? Okay. Oh, wow, cool. Yeah, right. Well, just for those of you who don't, he was a French Jesuit, born in 1881, died in 1955. He was a scientist, a paleontologist, and a Jesuit. Hard to imagine, but those two things actually came together for him, and a deep love of the earth. And Tripp mentioned this in his opening remarks. Teilhard had a sense that matter was everything, and there's more to matter than matter itself. And he had a sense of depth and awareness, and so he was in touch with the physicists of his time, and he said, there's an inside to matter, an interiority, so to speak. And he called this the level of mind, the level of awareness, an energy there that is pulling us beyond of something more. And then he said there's a level of matter that's attractability, right? It pulls us together. So he said when we think about what we are, we have to think mind and matter together. We are embodied minds, to put it in this way, right? We're not just matter and mind or body and soul. People always wonder, how do these things fit together? What happens when I die? Will my body go to the earth? My soul go to heaven? Oh my gosh, we're such good Platonists, We make Plato happy. But now we have to realize, as Teilhard said, because mind and matter are two sides of the same whole, science can only give us part of the answers, a part of the reasons of why we exist. Science doesn't even can tell us why we exist. It just tells us how things exist. But there's another side to the story. It's called religion. And without religion, science can only go so far. So we've put a lot of our eggs into the basket of science. Technology, it's going to cure us. It will solve all our diseases. It's going to make us smarter and more efficient and more happy. Well, it can't. It needs something else. And that, for Teilhard, is religion. And so he says, and by religion, by the way, I don't mean like, do you go to church? Do you pray? Those are good things. I mean religion in the deepest sense of what binds you. What are your ultimate concerns? What gets you up in the morning? That's religion. What really is the stuff of life. Religion is about, to me, it's the ligament. Sort of the cosmic umbilical cord. To what or to whom are we bound? And that's what Teilhard says. He says, religion and evolution are destined to form one single continuous organism in which their respective lives prolong, are dependent on, and complete one another. Religion and evolution belong together. And, this actually worked. In the pre-axial period, I do think there was a much greater enfoldment. Like, I don't think, for example, indigenous communities went around saying, what religion do you belong to? They just lived it. You live this cosmos spirituality. It's how you exist in relation to one another, in relation to the earth, and care for one another. Again, it's not something you believe in, it's something you do. But that dropped out, and we shrunk religion, like shrink-wrapped into dogmas, creeds, theologies, scholastic arguments, logical arguments about what God is, who God is, what are the attributes of God. It's so boring, right? It's like, who cares? So Teilhard's like, my God. He's like, get them out of that. It's deadly. It has deadened us. And we have fought over these things. Think of just the way Catholic and Protestants, over the years. I mean, Protestants are the coolest people I know. Honestly, I love you guys. I love all people, though. I love the Hindus. I love Buddhists. I have a really good friend who's Buddhist. So I'm Buddhist with the Buddhists, Hindu with the Hindu, Protestant with the Protestants, and secular with the secularist. I am where you are. And that's, to me, what Catholic is about. It's really being whole as being part of this whole. And that's what it means to be religious, right? Church, Teilhard would say, is like the last thing on the list. That's what the institution is supposed to help guide the way of living, not dictate it or enforce it into anything. So, in this respect, what is the purpose of religion? Teilhard said, well, the true purpose, he said, is to sustain and spur us on the progress of life, to animate life. Does religion animate life? Do we have that energy to get up in the morning and say, I live for something. I live for the future. I live for this power of love that we name as God. So, he says it's to sustain the zest for life. Zest for life. Did you ever look around at people in a mall? They look exhausted. The last thing we look like is what we have a zest for life. We're like, oh God, another day. Like, how long should I keep talking here? It's like we're mentally exhausted. We're physically exhausted. We've become so apart, in who we are, in this mind and matter, this soul that, is the field of the energy of love. And so how to reclaim that, I think, is what Teilhard was inviting us to. So he says, any religion which focuses only on individuals in heaven is insufficient. He said, people are looking for a religion of humankind and of the earth, which gives meaning to human achievements, a religion that will kindle cosmic and human evolution and a deep sense of commitment to the earth. That was Teilhard's words, like in mid-20th century. I don't know exactly, the 30s or the 40s when he wrote this. And we're still not there. right? We're trying to get there. I think we've made some baby steps, actually, in this direction. But this question of heaven, will I go to heaven? Well, the question is, has heaven come to you? So maybe we need to look at these things that we've grown so used to in new ways. Teilhard thought that a religion of evolution, and that's what I think he invites us to, a religion of change, a religion of moving, of becoming. He says, does this empower us toward more life? And by that he means faith in the development of this world. So for Teilhard, everything's religious. Your work in IT, your work at McDonald's, your work as a mother, everything that you're about is a religious act. It's a religious way of being in the world. So he says faith in God is to be the power of attraction. It's to be attentive, that we're part of, we're being pulled into by a God of love, a God of life, a God of infinite possibilities toward a new future. So he says faith in God as the power of attraction which makes development possible. In other words, religious people are the least creative today when we should be the most creative today. We should be filled with imagination. What do we hope for this world? What do we imagine for this world? The whole thing of Scripture is God has a vision, an imagination. Here's what it looks like. We're like, oh, well, when you say heaven, do you really mean like we're going here? Like, get over it. Heaven unfolds here. That's the whole point. Heaven is the openness of earth to its fullness in this power of life that we name as God. So, okay, one of my other little heroes here is this little guy named Carl Jung. So, honestly, I am not a Jungian specialist, but I think this guy was brilliant and insightful. And this is what he thought about Christianity and the Christian New Testament. He says, the many gods become one God. Okay? We kind of move from polytheism to, in a sense, a unified power of life. The one God becomes human. That would be Jesus. Every human is to become God. What? Didn't Jesus save us? And Carl Jung's like, not really, but he gives us the way. He's sort of a good model. But he says religion is a natural process of individuation. And I think, honestly, I look from the side of Christianity, it has disempowered us to become truly human. Like, it's sort of fearful. What happens if they become really human persons? I mean, I'm going to talk from the Catholic Church, all right? We can't even get women deacons in there. Like, what will happen if we allow women? Well, I can tell you, for one thing, it'll be more fun, but... I mean, honestly, Karl Rahner described the Sunday sermon as frozen birds falling from the sky, and I can really vouch for that, So religion as a process of individuation, which means this power of God, this name God points to something that is deeply immanent in us. And it requires the work of reconciling ourselves to ourselves, right? And that's that Christ life emerges from within and is lived without. And therefore we call this theogenesis. It's the birthing of God. So this morning we were talking in our panel, Athanasius' idea. God became human so that the human can become God. And, I think we hear that and we're like, oh, I can't really be God. I'm just me. I'm like, that's the whole point. You are the present. You are God now enfleshed. You are the Christ. And people are like, no, yes. How else do you think? I mean, what are we talking about otherwise, right? So through ongoing incarnation, both Jung and Teilhard said this, God rises up through consciousness. We are aware of this power. We are attentive to it. We respond to it. He says, and this power of God is completed by humankind in directed evolution. And here's the thing. If we do not get on board with what is a power working and inviting our lives to more life, technology rushes in and says, look, religion's a failure. Now we can use technology to save us. So the maxim is technology will fulfill what religion promises. Who needs religion when we have Neuralink, right? We can put the chip in your brain and make you like gods. Okay, so we are God's becoming. And that means this is the God, the power of life. The sun, the moon, the beautiful mountains out here, the deserts, the waters that are drying up or overflowing. The God who is in all things and calling all things to moreness of life. So what Teilhard says is we need a new religion of the earth. That's our challenge, and that's our call in the 21st century. If we ask, what is the future of religion? The future is not something that's tomorrow. The future is the realm of infinite possibilities. And that future is God. God calls us from the future to become something for the future. And therefore, we have to, in a sense, be attentive to what that call is right now in our lives. So, as Teilhard wrote, in the future, the only religion possible is the religion which will teach us in the very first place to recognize, love, and serve with passion the universe of which we are a part. In the Christian, here I'm going to talk from the Catholic side of things, we relegated the earth and things of matter to secondary status. We made the spirit and the things that are spiritual more important. So the idea was to not pay attention to the body and to pay attention to the soul. That has had alarming effects on our ecology because we never buried Plato. We just kind of reincarnated him over and over. And the fact is, we are earth through and through. We're earthly, anima, right? We're from the earth, through the earth, for the earth, and God is earthy. We find God in and through matter, the body, the soil, the trees, the water. So we have to, in a sense, find our way into a new wholeness. I think, in a sense, every religious path, if it brings one to wholeness, then it brings one to a power that we name as God. I don't think any one religion has, ta-da, the true, an army of youth flying the banner of truth type idea. It's like, dude, you really need to get out of that dress, okay? And just kind of join the club. A cosmotheatrical, cosmos, God, anthropos. God, God, cosmos, and the human, all entangled as one. That was Teilhard's vision of Omega, the fullness of love entangled in a unity. So, as Teilhard says, we cannot be saved except through the universe and as a continuation of the universe. That is called incarnation. That is what resurrection is about. And I think until we wake up to a God who is in love with matter, in love with becoming, in love to become more something in love, then we have, in a sense, the possibility for a new world, empowered by a new religious zest for life, or, as Teilhard says, we will all go perish in the desert. We have to make a choice. Choose life or not. Thanks.
Sit down. Please sit down. It's fine. I do appreciate it. Thank you. I've never spoken in front of a fog machine before. I don't really know what to do. Should I dance or something? What should I do? No. I've got 8 minutes. I'm not going to dance. All right. I'm very happy to be here, and for Tripp and for his team for setting this up, for getting me a chance to meet Ilia a little bit more. I couldn't come last year. I got bronchitis like 2 days before, and had I come, I would have gone right to the emergency room. I can guarantee that. And the year before that, that's the year I almost killed Tripp. So I'm hoping this is a better year. I don't know. This will make this work. The eternal silence of the infinite spaces terrifies me. When I consider the short duration of my life, swallowed up in the eternity before and after, the little space which I fill and even can see, engulfed in the infinite immensity of spaces of which I am ignorant, and which know me not, I am frightened, and am astonished at being here rather than there, for there is no reason why here rather than there, why now rather than then. Who has put me here? By whose order and direction have this place and time been allotted to me? That was Blaise Pascal, 17th century philosopher, where they just figured out telescopes. And he was like, oh crap. You know, David, if this is a psalm we can attribute to David, Psalm 19, the heavens declare the glory of God, and his firmament, his handiwork. That's the dome, the firmament overhead. And David's like, look at that dome. And look at the stars. This is amazing. Like, dude, I'm with Pascal that we're dealing with things that are fully incomprehensible. I'm not sure how much we can make these things comprehensible. You know this. We measure things in light years. Our galaxy, traveling at the speed of light, 186,000 miles per second, you got to keep that up for over 4 years to get to the nearest star in our galaxy. That's like a mic drop. If I wasn't afraid of breaking the mic, I would just sit down at this point. That is unsettling. Is it unsettling for anybody else? Is it just me? Am I talking? No, it is unsettling. Not that unsettling is bad, by the way. I think it's quite good, but it is unsettling. Can I read another quote to you? Because I will, because it's written in front of me. Religious fundamentalism and scriptural literalism. And by the way, and no one here is doing this. It's not about bashing this. It's about observing something, right? This is not a fight. This is just, we're trying to make sense of things. Religious fundamentalism and scriptural literalism are relics of the theological infancy of humankind. But they remain fixed in such outmoded cosmologies as the static pre-Copernican universe. By contrast, the theology of the third millennium, I love that phrase, by the way, theology of the third millennium would leave fundamentalist stories about God and creation myths, such as that depicted in the book of Genesis behind, like the fairy tales, animistic thinking, and projections of childhood that populate the world with demons and monsters. The problem is not with myths as expressions of archetypes, but with a literal interpretation of them as historic or empirical truths. It was Peter Todd who wrote a book about 10 years ago called The Individuation of God, which I've read twice. He is a Jungian research psychologist who meshes together cosmic, quantum, evolution, and deep psychology, and meshes them together and comes up with how to look at the world. And as you know, as a biblical scholar, I look at this too, and you know, he talks about Genesis and creation myths and things like that, and I say to myself, well, yeah, you know, I think. Forget all the other stuff. Just read Genesis. Just read the Adam and Eve story, right? I don't for 1 minute think that the ancient Israelites said, we're writing history here. I think they understood story. I know, to make it clear, let's put 2 magic trees in the middle of a garden with a talking snake, right? Now, again, I say that, and it's funny because we all have in our background, don't we? Many of us do, being told that if this isn't literal history, we're done for. Right? But here we have it. And I have to say I agree with Peter Todd. But see, here's the question. I'm just more venting here, if I may. This is not going to help anybody except me. Thank you for your therapy session and all that. But from my little corner of the world, here's the question that always comes up. What do we do with the Bible? And I have my thoughts about that, what to do with the Bible. But see, the problem is this is a big problem, meaning something we can think through. And I think something we have to think through. What we say at the Bible for normal people is what? What is the Bible and what do we do with it? Right? Those are ever-present questions. And they're not new questions. See, the way I process this, like what do I do with the Bible that was written over, depending on who you ask, roughly a 12 to 1400 year period, including the Christian Bible, in contexts and by people who could not have imagined the questions that we have and the experiences that we've had. How do you stay tied to a tradition where that text has been very important? To use Peter Todd's language, what does a third millennium theology look like with a scriptural tradition? Now, the good news is we're not the first people to ask those questions. They're asked within the Bible itself, right? The Bible is itself evolving. You have intramural debates and discussions. The author of Deuteronomy and the author of Job do not see God the same way. The author of Jonah and the author of Nahum do not see God the same way. I'm not sure how much Paul had in contact with his own tradition when he said some of the things that he said. I'm not sure if James and Paul were on the same page. In fact, it seems like they weren't, right? We have baked into the Christian tradition, at its foundation, I would say, the idea of your view of God is going to change based on what? Keeping your eyes open, thinking, experiencing. The big difference is we've had a whole lot of experiences over the past 100 years or so where the whole world is turned upside down. Technologically, everything else, it changes things. And that's just the challenge. It's a challenge I want to accept. What will this look like? And the big question for me is, how do we keep talking about God? And again, I say that as a positive thing. I'm wondering, like, what does it mean to me to even say God? Do I want to say God? Is that a damaged term? What do we do? So I want to read one last quote, then I'll be done, because I like this quote, and you're going to like it too. David Bentley Hart. Someone more sarcastic than me, by the way. I finally met somebody. This is from his book, The Experience of God. I just want to read this and sort of leave it there, and then we'll move on with our afternoon. God is not something posed over against the universe, in addition to it, nor is he the universe itself. He is not a being, at least not in the way that a tree, a shoemaker, or a god is a being. He is not one more object in the inventory of things that are, or any sort of discrete object at all. Rather, all things that exist receive their being continuously from him. Male language, but that's all right. Just forget that. From him who is the infinite wellspring of all that is, in whom, to use the language of the Christian scriptures, all things live and move and have their being. In one sense, he is beyond being, if by being one means the totality of discrete, finite things. In another sense, he is being itself, in that he is the inexhaustible source of all reality, the absolute upon which the contingent is always utterly dependent, the unity and simplicity that underlies and sustains the diversity of finite and composite things, infinite being, infinite consciousness, infinite bliss, from whom we are, by whom we know and are known, and in whom we find our only true consummation. All the great theistic traditions agree that God, understood in this proper sense, is essentially beyond finite comprehension. To me, this is hopeful and at the same time very unsettling. I have an ego too, you know. I want to control the universe with my head, but I think when we're dealing with God, that's just not an option. But if you guys know what to do with the Bible, let me know. Okay? I have some ideas, but another time. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. I'm Sari from Secret Art Project podcast, and we've got Josh Patterson, Rethinking Faith, and we're happy to help facilitate the conversation. That was great. But so first off, Ilia, just wanted to give you a chance to respond to Pete, especially because he seems to think the universe is really scary, and it seems like you are not very scared, and and just that smallness and that briefness that you emphasized in the contrast of sort of the emotive response and existential response.
Yeah.
How do you see that?
Well, so let me put it this way. As a former scientist, I was always drawn into the infinite depth of matter. So whether you're studying a cell or a neuron, there's just, so anything that we study in the physical world, everything has an immense dimension to it. So from the smallest neuron to the largest universe, I've never felt like small in relation to the largeness. I've always been sort of lured by the largeness of it, by the immensity. Like I look at the mountains here, you know, and there's a majestic, you know, beauty to them. And I don't think, oh my gosh, I'm just this little person and they can erupt and take me over. I'm thinking, wow, you know, like, so I guess I'm on the wow side of things, and I'm the kind of person who would love to go to Mars or Jupiter. I mean, I would love to go to space travel. I want to explore the immensities of the universe. I'm not fearful of them. I think there's much to discover there. So maybe I'm just a born optimist. I don't know. So. Comes from being in New Jersey, of course, you know.
I grew up in New Jersey, too.
Oh, did you?
Bergen County, yeah.
Really?
Yeah, where'd you grow up? We'll be with you in a minute. Where'd you grow up?
Born in Newark.
Yeah, okay.
And then grew up in Caldwell, and then Caldwell, Fairfield.
Yeah, cool, yeah.
Yeah.
Great. Grew up in Rivervale.
Bergen
County,
oh.
yeah. Anyway, so thanks for coming, folks. That's it. Okay, I love mountains too. It's galaxies. That's what I'm thinking about, you know. But the thing is, I mean, can you transpose that? I mean, I would love to be. I've heard astrophysicists who are Christians talk about, wow, isn't the universe beautiful? It declares the glory of God. I was like, I'm scared out of my mind. Not real. I don't go to bed at night afraid. I'm just saying, like, when you think about it, I'm like Pascal. Why am I here and not there? Why now and not then? Like, who's running this show, right? And you know, we have, as human beings, we have a few, maybe 10, 15, 20,000 years of religious thinking, you know. And of course, then you have the so-called great world religions, which changed everything: Judaism, Christianity, Islam. They, you know, it becomes more rule-oriented, not connected to nature as much, all that kind of stuff. But it's always in a small cosmos that these are things were articulated. And the fact is that we have another cosmos. And you know, I love the stuff Ilia does up there. I've seen this before. I keep looking at it and saying, this is amazing stuff. You know, and I'm trying to think, like, how does the stuff Ilia? I mean, I'm not asking you to answer the question, but this is the question I have. How does all that stuff connect us with a tradition which is always being transformed? But what's the connection? That's what I'm asking. That's what I'm asking on behalf of my college students who are like, what are you talking about? You know, but they get it too. So
Pete, it almost sounds like you have managed cosmology and unmanaged cosmology. So,
okay.
You know, like you might think of some therapy for that unmanaged cosmology.
My team of therapists is already at work here in this regard.
All right, Ilia, I have a question for you. So, as you're talking about, you know, the universe is becoming, it's in process. God is becoming, is in process. And we, as humans, kind of we weren't like zapped into the earth, but we grew out of it. You talked about our earthiness and this continual evolution of consciousness. As that process continues, logically, it's going to continue past us. So there's this like non-anthropocentric aspect to what you're talking about. And so how does that impact, I mean, I guess that kind of fucking changes everything. Like, how does that impact our theology, but also how we live in the world?
Yeah.
Because it is a unique time, I guess, to be here, but like...
Yeah. So, Josh, the way you phrase your question, so the universe, so I think what's hard for us to get our heads around is literally, we are the universe. I mean, it's not, so we keep talking like there's a universe out there and we're just part of it. But we are it. It's like, tag, you're it, you know? So let's go back there. So we are that universe, you know, coming into existence. And therefore, in a sense, the universe is waking up in us, and that waking up is what God is about, right? We're waking up into something more than ourselves, a power of life. And so what are we the question is, what are we becoming? What we become, in a sense, our choices, since we are the thinking portion of the universe, our choices will, in a sense, make a difference to, in a sense, like everything. Now, you know, we can say, well, it's all, like I have a colleague who says, it's all going to wear down, you know, and the universe is going to just collapse into one dark night. And that's it. It's going to just like be cosmic death, and God will die and we'll die and we'll all be dead. And I'm like, oh my God, that is so depressing. So.
Sounds like I need some therapy.
Ha ha ha. So I don't worry about what we're becoming. Instead, I try to become. So in a sense, not worrying about what we will be in the future, rather living into that future. So I think the most important thing is the present. You know, the present is always on the cusp of that future unfolding. And we will change. Definitely we will become something new. And that's the question, what will we become? And that depends on the choices we make, how we shape ourselves in this world, and therefore will we move into something that is more unified, more just, more equitable, or will it be overtaken by, and we'll be all robotic techno-sapiens? That's our question right now. You know, and so I don't worry too much about the immensities of it, because we have the possibility to annihilate this planet. That's also our reality. Like, we have the capacity to destroy everything. And we have to name those powers. Remember Walter Wink's famous book, you know, The Power, on the powers. Yeah. Right. You know, those powers are not something outside us. Right. They're within us. And so we have to name those powers, and we have to reprioritize the powers that are driving us. And what do we really want, and do we really want it together? That's, I think those questions are really, really important right now. And I think the immensity, I think you'll become comfortable, you know, with it eventually. Just stick around for another 10 billion years or so.
Exactly, right, yeah. In the meantime, yeah.
I like how you highlighted religion emerging in this bed of play and this experience of humans playing and ritual developing there. And, you know, as like a creative, like when I'm always looking to get myself into that state of play, and it's hard for grown-ups to get into that mindset and that state of play as we get older, you know? And I wonder if you see hope for some sort of recovery of play as a component in unity and this vision of religion that you propose. Yeah. Especially because in order to be in a state of play, you have to feel very safe.
Yes.
People don't play when they don't feel safe, and children don't play when they don't feel safe, even. And everybody's so freaked out right now. I'm scared.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
So yeah, what do you think about
No,
that?
I think, actually, when I came across that, and Bill, I really love that idea, because play is, it's freeing. It, in a sense, we can really be ourselves. But you're right, we have to trust and be part of something. So imagine if church was playful. Imagine if you went to church and played.
Maybe I'd go.
Would that not be the coolest thing? When I become Pope, that's one of my plans. Think of how deadly serious we are. We're like killing ourselves with dead seriousness, right? And so we're way down, we're anxious, we're depressed, we're fearful of the immensities of the universe, and we're wondering how we're going to get up tomorrow, and we don't play. Even if we try to play, it's like we have to keep score, we have to form teams, we have to win, right?
Yeah.
Play is always about winning instead of just playing. And so can we recapture it? This is where Jesus says, unless you become like little children, you will not enter the kingdom. You will not even see this reign of God, unfolding within you. So maybe the worst thing we ever did was grow up.
I love that.
We like relish the fact that we're mature, adults and grown and educated. I'm like, this is the worst thing that ever could happen to us. So we need
someone
to
just make a fart noise out there? I
Maybe
think
we
that's why
need
we
to-
have Theology Beer Camp. For.
This is without beer, by the way. So, maybe we need to grow down.
Yeah.
And, when we grow, we don't, because going back to, I love Mark's thing there, because we always want to appear like we're really smart, we're really, well-versed. We've read the New York Times. We know the problems. We can argue sensibly over our positions, our political positions, our religious positions. And do you ever see kids do that? No, they're like, let's play hopscotch, let's go in the sandbox, let's do something creative. I remember digging to China when I was a kid. I had a great
I did that
imagination,
too.
as you can imagine. So I was always like imagining like building underworld tunnels and stuff. So how do we get back to that? That's your question. And maybe religion needs to move in that direction. That's what I'm saying. Maybe religion needs to become more playful and invite us in to a kind of a new justice of playfulness.
Fun to imagine what that could look like. Yeah. Did you have anything? Sure.
So you talked a lot about, excuse me, I'm still going through puberty. It's so you talked a lot about your love of science and also the whole religion bit. And oftentimes a lot of people pit the two against each other. So how do you see us as religious people partnering with science in a way to move forward into this more playful, truly religious space?
Yeah, no, great question. First of all, don't be fearful of science. So there's a lot written today to help us get on board a little bit with evolution and quantum physics and systems biology and all the many. So scientists really love to play. When you go to the lab, it's like a wondrous open field of. Okay, I can only speak from my experience, right? So I worked in neuromuscular diseases. So I worked on the electrical side of things. So I spent a lot of my days in front of oscilloscopes, and I would do a lot of surgery on cats and kind of single out a single motor neuron and its fibers. And the first time, what do you do for fun? Yeah, that's what I did. And then I used to smoke cigarettes. So I would smoke, I would be in this cloud of smoke, sitting in front of an oscilloscope all day, watching signals, And then the first time I remember seeing that the signal was distorted, and I knew that I had come across something. And when a scientist makes a discovery, even as small as it is so wondrous. It's like I ran out of the lab trying to find someone like I just discovered the universe, myself. And it's so amazing. And that's what science has, a real beauty to it. And if we can get over our fear about science and all our biases around science, we would open up, because it's the study of nature. And nature is just filled with wonder and amazement. I mean, we would be amazed just to move my one finger, just like that. The millions of neurons that have to fire from my finger into the spinal cord, into the brain, and the brain processing things, all of these happening in a split second, not even a millisecond, if that. And the many, many times that we're moving and thinking, and we couldn't build this world even if we tried, honestly. And that's how I said, there's got to be a power here of God, you know. I mean, this is too wondrous for any human to make. So try as you might, Elon Musk, to, you know, create this world, but God is really a wondrous power of love.
Is that time? Okay, I think that's all the time we've got. All right.